Okay, Gurave, Gauda Chandra, Radhika Dadali, Krishnaya, Krishna Bhaktaya, Tadabhaktaya Namo. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadha, Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. So first of all, I offer pranams to our Gurudev, our Vishnupad Dutandi Swami Sri Bhaktivedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj, also our Shiksha Guru Sri Gaur Govinda Gosai Maharaj, Sri Bhaktivedanta Madhusudan Gosai Maharaj, all Vaishnavas, Dandavat pranams. Yes, we skipped a day yesterday. I was not feeling so great. Now I feel better now. It was so hot here, and day after day sometimes makes you tired. So, chapter 18, Bhedabheda-tattva. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy. How Krishna is one with, yet inconceivably different from his various potencies. Okay, this is Achintya Bhedabheda-tattva. So, we heard last chapter, Brajanath was being disturbed by various parties who were interested in him in marriage, because he was the only male member. So Venimadav, his cousin brother, took interest and wondered why Brajanath was so much eager to renounce this world. Brajanath was very simple, told Venimadav of his relationships with the Vaishnavas in Mayapur. So Venimadav went there and criticized Brajanath to him, to Raghunath Das Babaji, and vice versa, trying to make some discord. So when Rajanath heard this, he became very serious, and he told his grandmother, if you want to see me in the house anymore, you stop all this talk of marriage, and if you keep any contact with Veni Madhav, I will also leave the house. Veni Madhav is my enemy. You should neglect him. So grandmother became afraid if we continue pressing him, he will run away from home and go to Vrindavan or to Varanasi. So she stopped all talk of this. Then Venimadav heard this, he became very angry. So he collected some like-minded persons. They made a plan when Brajanath comes or goes to Mayapur, they will accost him in a secluded place and beat the Bajimanis out of him. Means they'll beat him. So Brajanath had one tenant, because Brajanath his family owns some land. His name was Harish. He was a stick fighter. So he requested Harish's help. Harish promised, Thakur, as long as there is life in my body, you have no fear. When you go to Mayapur, you take me with you. I can fight 100 people with a stick. So Brajanath could not go very often to Mayapur, and when he would go, he could not stay long. But after only 15 or 20 days, then Veni Madhav died from snake bite. Then Brajanath wondered, did he meet such an end because of enmity towards the Vaishnavas? Then when he told this, he went with an open heart to Babaji Maharaj. When Babaji Maharaj heard of the death of an unconscious jiva, he became sad, but he reconciled. At the end of the day, one gets the results of one's own activities. One suffers or enjoys the result of his karma. Swakarma phalbuk man. Everyone just getting the result of previous actions, nothing to lament for. So, Brajanath asked, I'm very eager to hear this rest of your instructions on Dasmal. Okay, what question you have? Brajanath asked, what is the pure philosophical teaching of Lord Chaitanya? I know the previous acharyas have established different philosophies like Advaitavad, that is exclusive monism. Another name for that is Mayavad. They believe Sarvakalam, nothing exists except Brahman. But the Vaishnavas have also established Dvaitavad, the philosophy of Madhvacharya, pure dualism, Sudha Dvaitavad, purified monism of Sri Vishnu Swami, right? If I'm not mistaken. Vishishta Dvaitavad, specialized monism of Sri Ramanuja, and Dvaitavad, Sudha Dvaitavad was the philosophy of the Rudra Sampradaya, and this Dvaitavad, the philosophy of Vishnu Swami, the Chatusna Sampradaya, dualism with monism. So these five philosophies, Grajana said, I've heard these five. Did Lord Gauranga establish a different philosophy? Also, we heard about the concept of Sampradaya, that is, Swatah Siddho Veda Haridayita Vedaha Praramitaha. We heard the system of Sampradaya. In the beginning of creation, Lord Narayan gave the self-manifested Vedas to the surrendered souls headed by Brahma. He gave to his disciple Narad, to Vyas. So he said, I've heard of Sampradaya. So is Lord Chaitanya. Do we consider him to be an acharya, a teacher in the Brahma Sampradaya? So two questions. So Rajana Babaji became very happy. You should hear the 8th sloka of Dasamul. Hari Shakti Sarvam Chitachit Akilam Syata Parinatihi Vivatam Na Satyam Shrutamiti Virudam Kalimalam Hari Beda Bedo Shruti Vihita Tattvam Suvimalam Tataha Premna Siddhi Bhavati Nitaram Nitya Visaye. Okay, this is the 8th verse of Dasmo Shiksha. God, I've only learned 4, so everyone make a little more effort to learn these verses. So, the entire spiritual and material creation is a transformation of Krishna's energy. The impersonalist philosophy of transformation or Vivadavad is not true. It is an impurity that is practiced and preached, especially produced by the contamination of Kali Yuga. It is completely opposed to the teachings of the Vedas. The Vedas support the philosophy of inconceivable oneness and difference, Bhedabheda-tattva, as the pure and perfect doctrine. And one can attain perfect love for Krishna when he accepts this philosophy. Okay, so this is verse 8 of Manashiksha. So Babaji Maharaj explains this. So the essence of all the Vedas is given in the Vedanta Sutra. Okay. So from the Vedanta Sutra, the various great personalities have extracted the essence in the form of these Vedic teachings. So, for example, we already heard the 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas have all taken their philosophy from the meanings extracted from the Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra means the conclusion of all Veda. Sutra means condensed. So I think the Vedanta Sutra is like 555 sutras. Only 2-3 words in each sutra. So Sankaracharya has also based his false philosophy of Mayavad on Vedanta Sutra, and he has made a speculative and imaginary commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. That is called Sadhukabhasa. Vaishnavas should not read it. Mahaprabhu said to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Vaishnav Nistaralagi Sutra Kvaruvas Mayavad Vasa Sundare Hoi Sarvanas. To deliver the jivas, Vyasadeva has given this Vedanta Sutra, but one should not read the commentary of Sankaracharya, because if you read it, you will lose everything. Because bhakti is based on the 2 feelings, I am the servant, Krishna is the master. Sevak and Sevyabhav. But in Mayavad they believe, no, the Jiva becomes one with Brahma, therefore they don't believe there's any existence of the individual Sevak, servant, or of Bhagavan after the attainment of liberation. Therefore that commentary should not read. If you read, then your devotion will be destroyed. So, Sankaracharya has made a philosophy also based on imaginary descriptions of the Vedanta. That philosophy says that everything is a transformation of Brahma, a transformation within Brahma. And his philosophy is called Parinamvad. Parinam means, the definition will be given later, when something becomes something else, completely different. So, to support his philosophy, Sankaracharya took some mantras from here and there. To support his Vivatavad, the philosophy of transformation, right? They believe Brahma is a non-dual entity, a non-dual thing, devoid of name, form, qualities, potencies, or any type of variety. And that undifferentiated Brahman has transformed to become the individual souls and transformed to become this world. So this world is a transformation of Brahma, and their philosophy is Vivatavad. Okay. So, but this Vivata has many defects. We will hear later. Therefore, the various Vaishnavas that came after Sankaracharya were not satisfied with his philosophy. Therefore, Madhvacharya especially made his philosophy of Dvaitavad. If Sankaracharya made his philosophy of non-dualism, then Madhvacharya made a philosophy completely opposed to that called pure dualism. Ramanuja also wrote against that with his philosophy of Vishishtadvaitavad, purified monism. Okay, we can't really get into it too much, but Vishishtadvaitavad. Vishishta means adjective or specialized. Something which qualifies a noun is called a Vishishta, an adjective. Like, for example, black cow. The quality of being black is not different from the cow, but it qualifies it more, defines it more. It's an attribute of the cow. Therefore, it's not different, but also it gives variety to the cow. Okay, I don't want to explain it too much, but this is the philosophy of pure, specialized monism. Nimbaka taught, yes, there is dualism, yet at the same time, there is also monism. No? This is natural occurring oneness and difference. Nimbakacharya. Nimbaditya, sorry. Vishnu Swami taught non-dualism, Sudadvaitavad, purified monism. No? So these four Vaishnavas have given their philosophies. But Sankaracharya's philosophy of Mayavad or Vivatavad is completely opposed to the Vedas. Therefore, these four Vaishnava philosophies all are pure. Like a cow has four legs. So all four Vaishnava philosophies are acceptable. So, but Mahaprabhu collected something from each of these four and gave his own philosophy, which is a tattva. One may give the argument, but Nimbaditya, Vishnu Swami, these all they are pure Mahabhagavats, free from four defects. So Mahaprabhu not found any defect in their philosophy. But at the end of the day, no one can give a better philosophy than God himself. Even he gives a better philosophy than even liberated and perfect souls, because God. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy is not a vad. Vad means philosophy. It's a tattva, means truth. Okay. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu not made a new sampradaya. He joined the Brahma sampradaya, because he so much had favoritism towards the philosophy of Madhvacharya. Okay, so now, please explain the Mayavad philosophy of Vivatavad or Parinamvad, the philosophy of transformation. Okay, so Babaji said there are two types of philosophies of transformation. One is called Brahma Parinamvad, the transformation of the absolute truth itself to become the jivas and to become this world. There is also the philosophy of Shakti Parinamvad, which is followed by the followers of Lord Chaitanya. In the philosophy of Shakti Parinamvad, we accept that Krishna, Shaktiman, who is possessed, who is the controller and enjoyer of unlimited varieties of potency, he always remains untransformed, immutable and unchanging. So whatever variety we see in this world is a transformation of Krishna's energy, not a transformation of Krishna. So this is the philosophy of Shakti Parinamvad. Okay, so those who believe in the first philosophy of Brahma Parinamvad, they believe that Brahma, right, which is achintya, inconceivable, a nirvishesh, formless, a formless Brahma, a formless impersonal Brahman transforms to become the jiva and transforms to become this world. And they try to give some support from this. For example, the Chandogya Upanishad, ekam eva advitiyam, that one became many. So we will hear the explanation of that sutra according to the devotees later. So according to this Vedic mantra, that one became many, but really there is nothing else existing except Brahma. They even have a mantra, Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mityam, Jiva Eva Brahmanapara. The only truth is the impersonal Brahman. This world, what you see is false, and what you call the individual soul or the jiva is also nothing else but that Brahman. Okay? This is all the philosophy of Sankaracharya. So this philosophy is called Brahma Parinamvad, Vivatavad, or Advaitavad, the philosophy of pure monism. But actually, in theory, the world they use is Parinamvad, progressive transformation. First, the Brahma become the Jiva, then become this world. But the actual process they describe is called Vikar, transformation. They try to hide because they say Brahma has no transformation. He has progressive transformation. So it's like word jaggery. So what is the meaning of that philosophy? Okay, and Babaji will explain why that philosophy is not possible. Okay. So according to their philosophy, Brahma, the impersonal Brahman, transforms to the jiva of this world. Remember, the first argument comes. Did Scripture describe, but how can something of pure knowledge and pure existence possibly transform into another object? If there is only one entity existing, what is to make it transform, and what does it transform into? Then it becomes two. This is against the very philosophy of Parinamvad in the first place. Understand? How can something all-pervading and unlimited transform? There's no space for it to transform into. And what will cause a transformation if there's nothing else existing except that? So by its own definition, the philosophy itself is ridiculous and impossible. Okay, how can this Brahman be modified into a second substance if nothing else exists apart from it? I just skipped a page, Malta, 406. Okay. So also, a transformation of Brahman defies logic, which is why it is unreasonable. Okay, we're just going back to the previous slide. I just wanted to run it on together. So, back to 405. But the Vaishnavas do not accept this philosophy because we know that God has no transformation. He is immutable. What is there to transform him? But the Vaishnavas rather accept the philosophy of there is transformation, but transformation of Krishna's potency. Right? Krishna has unlimited potencies. We heard that in Dasmo number 4. Krishna has one supreme potency, the Parashakti. The Parashakti, the supreme potency, has 3 kriyas. No? It manifests the Chit Shakti, the Jiva Shakti, and the Maya Shakti. Okay. So the Chit Shakti, the spiritual potency, transforms to the varieties in the spiritual world. Maya Shakti, the material potencies, transform to manufacture the millions of various universes. And the Jiva Shakti transforms to produce innumerable atomic living entities. Anu Chaitanya. So there is no transformation of the Shaktiman, of Krishna himself. Rather, there is transformation of Krishna. Okay. So, okay. Then the Mayavadis may give an argument. No, because they believe that the ultimate reality has no desire. So when they hear the philosophy of Shakti Parinamvad, then they give the philosophy, well, that is impossible because Brahman, the absolute truth, has no desire, and desire is also a transformation. So they reject this philosophy. So Babaji says, how can you compare the desire of Krishna to the desire of the individual living entity? You cannot compare it. Right, Mikeshri? Why not? Because in this world, a desire is caused by something else, something separate, something different, by another potency. For example, a man sees a woman, which is different from him, separate from him, then the man feels some transformation, some desire. We see a pizza, pizza is different from us, we feel some transformation of hunger. But this cannot be applied to Krishna. Why? Because desire is intrinsic within Krishna's Swarup. It's not something caused by an outside object. Right? The conditioned soul's desire for sex life, the desire for eating and sleeping and all these things is not intrinsic to their own soul, to the nature itself of the soul. It's caused by a transformation of the gross and subtle bodies in contact with this world. But Krishna, intrinsic in his Swarup, is the 3 qualities of possessing the power to be the enjoyer. You listening, Makeshri? The potency to be the male, the potency to be the enjoyer, and the potency to have desire. These 3 qualities are inherent in Krishna's Swarup. So desire is not something separate from Krishna's Swarup. It's intrinsic within him. Also, right, in this world, we already said the desire comes from something else, contact with a foreign object. But Krishna's energy is not separate from him. It's not different from him because Shakti, Shakti Motora Ved. There is a oneness with Krishna and his potency. So the desire to transform his potency is not a transformation of Krishna because the potency is Krishna himself. It's not different from him. For that reason, the desire of Krishna cannot be also to be considered as a vikar, as a material transformation. Okay. So he gave the example of what is a parinam or a transformation. So Babaji Maharaj gave the idea. Transformation is like you put lemon juice into milk and it transforms to become a third entity, which is called yogurt. So of course some material example cannot give the full picture, but still sometimes can little help. Okay? But Krishna is not like that. Why? Even material things possess the potency to transform, but that themselves not transform. Example like the Chintamani jewel, one mystic jewel. It if you touch the jewel to gold, it makes those metal things gold, but the jewel itself does not change. No. So many things are like that. Like the sun, I guess, another example. Sun transforms into light and atomic particles of sunlight, but the sun does not change. So even material things like Chintamani jewels, sunlight, for example, no, they possess the power to produce many transformations without themselves being transformed. Then why not Krishna? So already we heard that Krishna potency works according to his desire. So Krishna can desire many things, but Krishna still remains without transformation, without change. So, okay. So another argument against the philosophy of Brahma Parinamvada is that Brahma, the absolute truth, is not formless. It is not without potency. It is not without qualities. Rather, Bhagavan or Krishna is possessed of six opulences, complete six qualities: complete beauty, complete strength, complete fame, complete knowledge, complete renunciation. He possesses all these things. So already we heard we cannot accept that that Brahma is without potency, because everywhere the potencies of Vishnu have been described. I think we heard that in the 4th chapter. So Krishna possesses unlimited potencies, and Krishna desires that these potencies act. But Krishna himself does not do anything. So by his inconceivable potencies, Krishna exists without transformation, and his various potencies transform to create the varieties in the material and the spiritual world. Okay. So this world is from him, by him, and in him. Yet Krishna remains without transformation. Okay. So, Krishna's original form is Satchidananda. He is the embodiment of eternality, knowledge, and bliss. Krishna's spiritual name, his abode, Golok Vrindavan, his associates, and all his paraphernalia for his service, all are manifested from his potencies and are non-different from him. They are Krishna's Surup Vaibhav. They are not separate from him. The countless liberated souls and conditioned souls also come from him, and the material world, the pradhan, also comes from him at the same time. Therefore, these are 4 features of Krishna, and they exist eternally. And they are one with him. They are non-different from him. Okay. Afterwards, he gives more example of this, quoting from Jiva Goswami Pad. So, Rajanath asks, what is Vivatavad? No? So Vivat, we heard, Parinam means when something transforms into something different. Okay? The example was given of yogurt and milk. Yogurt and milk transforms by adding lemon juice to become yogurt. No? So this is called Parinamvad. So the Mayavadis give that as Vivatavad. Vivata means to mistake something as something else. Now, Vivata is the illusion of mistaking one thing for another. So Krishna potencies transform to become the varieties within the material and spiritual world, but Krishna himself does not change. Therefore, there is change within Krishna's potencies, but not within him. So the Mayavadis give the other philosophy of Vivatavad. Vivata means to mistake something as something else. For example, the Mayavadis give 3 examples of Vivatavad. For example, they give the example here. The individual soul is really the absolute truth, they say. but he's become bewildered into thinking himself to be an individual soul. Well, that's a great philosophy, isn't it? That Brahma, which is full knowledge, somehow forgets himself and thinks he's an individual soul. Number two, Brahma reflects into this world to create the jiva. So the jiva is a reflection of Brahma. And three, the jivas in the material world are the dream of Brahma. Okay. This is called Mayavad. Okay. So Babaji will destroy these arguments one by one. Already in previous chapters we have heard all the arguments against this. If Brahma is all-pervading, what does it reflect into? Impossible. If there is nothing else in Brahma, then how it can produce a second thing called a jiva that is against its own definition? Anyway, so we will hear. They say when the all-pervading Brahman becomes bewildered, overcome by Maya, that overcome section is called the jiva. And then he enters the material world. So the Mayavad believe that the jiva, the individual soul, is the absolute truth. They say it only appears to be different due to the influence of illusion. This is the philosophy of Jaiva-Dharma. When you see something and mistake it to be something else. They give example like if you see silver in mother, like the oyster shell have mother of pearl. Abalone shell also, no? So if you see that silver color of the oyster shell or the abalone and you think it to be silver, that is Vivata. Or if you see a rope and you mistake it to be a snake, this is called Vivatavad. So when the jiva mistakes himself, when Brahma mistakes himself to be an individual soul, that is Vivatavad. No? But Jiva Goswami says no. Okay, to mistake something as another thing, that is mistake. But you cannot say that silver does not exist and mother of pearl does not exist. Both things exist. But to mistake something for another, that is the mistake. Okay. So, in other words, they say that Brahman has now become subject to the influence of Maya. Okay. They say this is because Brahman is impersonal and does not have any form. Therefore, that impersonal has to assume a material body in order to manifest himself in this world. Okay, so they say the jiva is false, that is imaginary, and they say the incarnations of God are also imaginary. They say because Brahman is impersonal, so in order to manifest in this world, Brahman has to take the form of an incarnation with a material body in this world. They say the only difference between the incarnations of God and the individual souls is that the individual souls are forced to accept a material body according to their karma, but Ishvara is not forced, he accepts due to his own will. And when he desires, he also gives up this body. Of course, all these ideas are atheistic, completely unacceptable. Nowhere in scripture does it say that the Ishvara ever accepts a material form. Okay, so Babaji Maharaj explained this philosophy. This chapter is a little bit intense. So Babaji Maharaj explains Vivatavad, the Mayavad philosophy of transformation. So, the Vaishnavas accept there is a Vivata. A Vivata means when you think something to be something else. But the explanation the Mayavadis give is completely imaginary. For example, the soul is atomic spiritual substance. When he's bewildered, he's covered by gross and subtle bodies, and he imagines himself to be that. This is the only example of Vivata given in the Vedas. Someone may think, I'm Ramanath Pandey, the son of a Brahmin. My father's name is Sanatan Pandey. Another may think, I'm a sweeper, Madhua, and my father's name is Harkua. But actually, these thoughts are vivata. When the soul mistakes himself to be this gross and subtle body. Actually, the soul is neither Ramanath Pandey or the sweeper Madhua. But because he is identifying himself with the bodily covering, he thinks himself to be so. This is vivata. Other example is mistaking a rope to be a snake and mother of pearl to be silver. So Veda gives these examples. But the examples of the Mayavadis, that example is not given anywhere in Scripture. The Vedas give these examples of the rope and the snake and the mother of pearl to convince the jivas to become free from this illusion of vivata. But Mayavadis have rejected the true philosophy of the Vedas and established a rather imaginary theory of Vivatava. They say, I am Brahma, Aham Brahmasmi, is essential for spiritual understanding. But this is simply foolish, right? If you are Brahma, just say, we play devil's advocate and accept that Jiva is really Brahma, then question comes, then why do any sadhana? Because you're already that. And what you become because you're already that. Therefore, the whole idea of spiritual practice and spiritual attainment you should throw out the window because you are already that. Then why do any spiritual practice if you are already Brahma? Anyway, so many, many pages of arguments Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives against this Mayavad philosophy. So, Rajanath asks where this philosophy came from of Mayavad. Babaji Maharaj also explained in previous chapters that Lord Vishnu ordered Lord Shiva to preach this imaginary philosophy of Mayavad to bewilder the demons. Krishna thought, "O Shiva," he said, it is not auspicious for this mature world if my pure devotion is taught amongst those who are mode of ignorance and whose character is demonic. No, we explained already. Imagine the temple should be a place where everyone has no other desire to serve Krishna. And devotion fulfills all desires. So the demons would come to the path of bhakti and they would request from bhakti terrible things of no benefit to themselves or no benefit to this world. There's a little joke sometimes Maharaj tells also. There was one man who was very envious of his neighbor. So he worshipped Shiva for a lot. And Shiva said, what do you want? So the man said, whatever you give me, you have to give my neighbor double. So Shiva said, okay. So the man plucked out his eye. That means Shiva now has to pluck out both the eyes of his neighbor. I mean, it's a funny example, but people of demonic mentality, what thing they will ask? They will only ask for things of no value to themselves and no value to others. Then devotion fulfills all desires easily. Therefore, devotion would be the cause of destruction of this world. Because demonic people would ask for demonic things and give so much disturbance to devotees, so much disturbance to the path of devotion, and ultimately so much disturbance to Krishna. Therefore, Krishna ordered Shiva, you preach this Mayavad philosophy to cover me and to cover my devotion for the good of this world. Already we heard in previous chapters, one should not doubt Bhagavan's character and think, oh, how this could be auspicious for anyone, because he knows past, present, future. Krishna knows what is good for everyone. So therefore, only Krishna knows what auspiciousness is hidden in his order. Hey, could you turn on my light here? Top switch. Again. Okay, leave it. Again. Go. There it is. So only Krishna knows what auspiciousness is inside his order. Therefore, we never find any fault with Lord Vishnu for giving this instruction. And the same way, we should find no fault for Shiva in the form of Sankacharya who preached it. Whatever he did for the benefit of this world. Okay, so Mayavad is imaginary scripture created to bewilder the demons and deviate them away from the path of devotion. Okay. So already in previous chapters we heard so many arguments against Mayavad. So Brajanath asks, is there any Vedic evidence against the Mayavad philosophy? Then Babaji Maharaj said, is there any evidence in the Vedas supporting it? Not at all. The entire Vedic philosophy is opposed to this Mayavad philosophy. Sankaracharya has taken 4 mantras and tried to establish these as the prominent statements of the Vedas, the Mahavakyas. One thing I may add, in previous chapters, we heard, I think it was in the 4th chapter, that there are 3 types of persons: those attracted to the path of karma, those qualified for the path of liberation, and those qualified for the path of devotion. So some places in scriptures, it glorifies the process of karma to give people steadiness and faith in following that process. Also, other places in scriptures, it glorifies impersonal liberation to encourage the persons who are qualified for that. And some places in scriptures also describes devotion to encourage and give steadiness and practice to those who are qualified for bhakti. But we cannot just take one statement, for example, which glorifies karma or jnana and say that is the conclusion. So we should remember that when we preach also. Karma, jnana, and bhakti are not 3 separate processes. These are one yoga process, like staircase. So that is one conception Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave in previous chapters to understand these statements. So now he's giving some other process, some other understanding. So the 4 main statements of the Mayavadis. Already we heard these are not the 4 main statements of the Vedas. Omkar is the main statement of the Veda. Pranava Sarva Vedasu, Krishna says, I am Om within the Vedas. So these 4 are not Mahavakyas, they are secondary statements. But Sankaracharya has taken them out of context to bewilder people. So here Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives 4 commentaries on these 4 Vedic statements. What are the 4 statements? Salva Karma Vidam Brahma, the whole universe is Brahma. Chandogya Upanishad. Number 2, Pragyanam Brahma, perfect knowledge, supreme knowledge is Brahma. Brahma is pure knowledge, in other words. 3, Tattvamasi Swekatu, O Swekatu, you are that, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, sorry. And Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahma, the Brihad Aranaki Upanishad. These 4 statements. Okay, so Babaji Maharaj explains them. Sarva Kalavimidam Brahma. Yes, he explains everything is the transformation of Krishna's potency, and Krishna and his potency are non-different. In that way you understand the whole universe is Krishna. Simple Vaishnava understanding. Okay. So, the second statement, Pragyan Brahma. Pragyanam Brahma. The supreme knowledge is Brahman. They believe perfect knowledge is Brahman. Pure consciousness is Brahman. So Pragyanam Brahma. So our Gurudev, Param Gurudev, his name is Bhakti Pragyan Kesam Goswami Maharaj. So when the Mayavadis say Pragyanam Brahma, then what is the Vaishnava understanding of what is Pragyanam? Tadeva Dhiro Vigya Pragyanam Kurvita Brahma. Perfect knowledge means attachment to Krishna, Brahma. So Pragyana means the topmost Gyan, the most perfect Gyan, which is Prema Bhakti, or pure love for Krishna. Okay. So pure knowledge for pure love for Krishna, that is perfect knowledge or Pragyanam. Okay, that is the second statement. The third statement, Tattvamasi Swekato, or Swekato, you are that. You know, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got this mantra, when he took sannyas, then tasya tamasi, you belong to him. That is, Mahaprabhu is tasya tattvamasi, you are that. No, Mahaprabhu explained, tasya tamasi, you belong to him. So Mahaprabhu explained this verse like that. No? So here Babaji Maharaj explains, tattvamasi means who gains real knowledge, attains service to Parabrahman. He is known as a Brahmana. Therefore, it's a quote from Brihad Aranyak Upanishad. One who leaves this material world without understanding the eternal Lord Vishnu, he is a Kripana, a miser. He is degraded. While those who leave this material world knowing Lord Vishnu, they are the real Brahmanas. So a real knower of Brahman or Krishna, that is a Brahmana. Okay? That is the Vaishnava understanding. Tattvamasi. We've heard many, many different explanations. Gurudev would say, yes, and this is explained later also. So I will not jump to that. And the fourth statement is Mahavakya Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahma. Okay? So already we heard some statements seemingly to glorify or establishing personal liberation. This is just to help people of that qualification. This is not the ultimate conclusion of the Vedic scriptures. So, Aham Brahmasmi, yes, you are non-different from him. You are non-different from him. Aham Brahmasmi. So, Rajanath said, yes, now I understand clearly. Mayavad has no place in the Vedic literature. So I understand the Vedas established the teaching of Achintya Bhedabheda-tattva. Can you explain this more clearly? Okay, so the philosophy of Achintya Bhedabheda-tattva means there is an inconceivable oneness and simultaneously difference between Krishna and his energies. So oneness is always there and difference is always there. Okay? So some places in the scriptures establish the oneness and some places in the scriptures establish the difference. Sankaracharya, it tried to only focus on those Vedic statements which establish the oneness. But problem is there are many, many statements which establish the duality also. So for example, Sankaracharya established on the oneness. Other acharyas like Madhvacharya focused on the difference. But you cannot just focus on one side. For example, if you only accept the oneness, then the places in the Shrutis which describe the difference will give you disturbance. Like Nityananda, Nitya Nityananas, Chaitanya Chaitananam, of all supreme conscious entities, Krishna is the supreme conscious entity. Of all eternal entities, Krishna is the supreme eternal entity, so difference is there. Okay, so Babaji Maharaj gives both sides, those Shrutis which establish the oneness of the Jiva, which is Krishna's energy and Krishna. And also many places in the scriptures which establish the difference. So both ways he shows. If you want to read, I'm sure you've read that the next 3 pages are full of all these quotes. No? They would include that the Vedic mantras establish both oneness and difference. Therefore, it is quite clear that the Vedas support the Achintya Bhedabheda-tattva. It seems there is no Siddhanta higher than the principle of Achintya Bhedabheda-tattva. No other Siddhanta can compare to it. When one accepts this philosophy of Achintya Bhedabhed, can one then realize the internal individuality of the Jiva and his eternal difference with Krishna? Okay. Without understanding the difference, the soul cannot then attain for love of Priti, which is the goal of life. If you are Krishna, how can you love Krishna? Impossible. Already we gave the example, Gurudev would say, we do not want to become chocolate. Number one, chocolate has no power to taste itself. Chocolate has no power to experience itself. To experience chocolate, you have to be different from chocolate. If your tongue is made of chocolate, you cannot taste chocolate either. So to experience Brahma, you have to be different from him. But we cannot be different from him because everything comes from him. So these opposites reconcilable. How reconcilable? If you understand Krishna possesses unlimited potencies, inconceivable potencies which make the impossible possible. So now we're almost finished. Last question. Because this is verse 8 of the 10 Dasmal Tattvas. So, if you accept there is difference, then you can accept that the love of Krishna is the ultimate goal of life. So Brajnath asked, please tell me evidence from the Vedas that Priti or love of Krishna is the ultimate goal. So in the Mundaka Upanishad, it says, Krishna is the soul of all souls. He shines within all beings. Those who know that Krishna by the science of devotion, they never look for anything else, because there is nothing else in existence. Such liberated souls are endowed with attachment to the Supreme Self, Sri Krishna, and they participate in his loving pastimes. Such bhaktas, such devotees are the best of all those who are in knowledge of the Absolute Truth. Mundaka Upanishad. Okay. The Taittiriya Upanishad, Raso Vaisa, Krishna is nectar personified. The individual soul finds pleasure in associating with that nectarian Krishna. How could anyone live if he was not present within the heart? So there is indication of love also in the Upanishads. Therefore, here, I want to read this last, because very beautiful, condensed conclusion of Bhaktivinoda. Very sweet. I was thinking this the other night, long time could not sleep because so beautiful, so everything reconciled by its sweetness. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, right, this way which everyone wants bliss, everyone wants happiness. All living entities are in search of bliss and pleasure. There in Sanskrit, bliss means ananda, 423. And bliss is a synonym for the word love, priti. And everyone is looking for pleasure. Everyone is looking for bliss. Some believe that liberation is the ultimate pleasure. That is why they become mad for liberation. The materialists believe sense enjoyment, that is the ultimate pleasure. And they spend their whole lives trying to attain that. In the hope of achieving pleasure, everyone is performing activities in this world, from the worm to the king. Everyone is doing activities with the goal of happiness. The devotees are also endeavoring for Krishna's devotion. In fact, everyone is looking for affection, priti. So much they're ready to sacrifice their lives for it. No, Bhagavatam says the materialists are ready to sacrifice their lives for money. For money you get enjoyment. Professional soldiers, bank guards, explorers, thieves, they're ready to give their life for happiness. In principle, everyone's ultimate goal is priti. Priti means bliss, affection, and happiness. No one can disagree with that. Everyone is exclusively searching for pleasure, whether they are believers or atheists, whether they are karmis or jnanis, whether they are full of desires or have no desires. Everyone is searching for love. However, one cannot achieve love simply by seeking it. The karmis try to attain celestial pleasures by performing karmakanda, fruitive activities. But the Bhagavad Gita explains, when their karma is finished, they fall from the celestial planets. Okay. A person may begin to covet the pleasures of the heavenly planets again when he is not satisfied with the pleasure of this world. In this world we have wealth, children, fame and power, but it's not enough to satisfy. People want more, therefore they try to attain the celestial planets, but that is temporary also. Some people become indifferent to the pleasures of this human world. They become indifferent to the pleasures of the celestial worlds. They become indifferent even to the happiness of the topmost planet of Lord Brahma, when he understands they are all temporary. Therefore, to get a superior happiness, he renounces all this and starts to investigate liberation or Brahma Nirvana. And he tries earnestly for liberation, impersonal liberation. But that impersonal liberation also lacks bliss, also lacks priti. Why? Now hear very carefully. How is it possible to experience bliss in impersonal liberation? Number one, who is the personality who is supposed to experience it if you have destroyed your existence? If I merge and lose my identity, who will experience Brahman? The very concept of Brahman, of bliss of Brahman, is meaningless because whether there is pleasure in Brahman or not, there is no one left to experience it. Right? That is the philosophy of Buddhism. Life is suffering, so by extinguishing your existence, you do not suffer anymore. But the problem, and when you don't suffer, then you're happy. But the problem is, if you don't exist, who will experience happiness? No one. The theory of impersonal liberation does not admit that anyone actually exists in the liberated state to enjoy such pleasures. So what conclusion can be drawn from such a philosophy? If I cease to exist when I am liberated, then my individuality is lost along with my existence. There is nothing by which I can experience bliss or pleasure anymore, because I myself do not exist. Someone may say, I am Brahmarup, I am Brahman. But this is false, because then the I am is eternal. Therefore, in either case, everything is useless, because if you are Brahman, then what's the use of performing any spiritual practice? Because you are already the goal. So many confusions come. Number one, you don't exist. And number two, if you are that thing anyway, then you don't exist now either. If your existence is false, why are you trying so hard to extinguish your existence? So many faults come with this conclusion. Therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives beautiful conclusion. Therefore, Bhakti is the only path by which the jiva can achieve his goal of life. The final stage of Bhakti is Prema, which is eternal. The pure jiva is eternal, Krishna is eternal, and pure love for him is also eternal. Consequently, one can only achieve perfection of true love in eternity when he accepts the path of Jaiva-Dharma. Otherwise, the ultimate goal of life for the jiva, which is love for Krishna, becomes non-eternal, and the existence of the jiva is also lost. Therefore, all the scriptures accept and confirm the doctrine of its inconceivable oneness and difference. All other doctrines are simply mental speculation. Brajnath returned home in a blissful state of mind, deeply in thoughts about pure spiritual love. Right? The Mayavadis believe because you cannot fix your mind on something which is unmanifest and unlimited, you imagine a form and worship that. And you develop so-called attachment to that, but that is all illusionary. You should give up that and merge with Brahman. So their idea, Krishna is not eternal and the individual soul is not eternal. They believe what is eternal? Only one all-existing Brahman. Very nice thing. If you become chocolate, you cannot taste it. If you become Brahman, who is left to experience it? No one. So really. And the materialists also chasing happiness, but that is temporary. So what we're looking for, bliss, happiness, affection, love, that is possible only in the philosophy of bhakti. Okay, very nice. Wonderful chapter. Chapter 19 is next. And we finish right on time. 1 hour is there. Now we're hearing Bhedabheda-tattva. No? This now introduce the cousin of Brajanath, that is Vijay. And also, then the next chapter, Vaidhi Sadhan Bhakti. Then Raganuga Sadhan Bhakti. Okay. And I think then chapter 22, commencement of Prayojan Tattva. The next 3-4 chapters very important for us. I think we've all understood Sambandha Gyan. Everything is related to Krishna. Nothing is separate from him. Yet at the same time, by dint of his inconceivable potency, Krishna remains completely separate from everything. Nothing is separate from him, yet everything is different from him. How possible? That is Krishna consciousness. Thank you very much. So please everyone read this chapter today again, especially these all arguments against Mayavad. Because we already heard in previous chapters that Jiva by his own power can only have what? Knowledge of impersonal existence, impersonal knowledge, and impersonal happiness. So Brahma Satya, Brahma Gyan, and Brahmananda, that is all the Jiva can have without contact of the Sampradayas. So by the Sampradaya, he can get some Surup Shakti, he can realize something more than that. So when we preach, practically speaking, everyone we're preaching against Mayavad, impersonalism. That is all the Jiva can understand independently. That we should try to understand all these nice arguments Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given about them. For our benefit also, like Raghunath Goswami said, because talks of liberation like the mouth of a tiger. No one comes out the mouth of a tiger. So even some slight attraction to the Mayavad philosophy will cause devotion to disappear. For our benefit and the benefit of the world, should we try to understand all these arguments against impersonalism. No? Bhakti Pragyan Kesha Maharaj, he said, after reading all Prabhupada's books and hearing his lectures, I could understand one point was there in all Prabhupada's preaching against Mayavad. He said, as long as Mayavad is present in this world, Sudha Bhakti cannot be preached. So he dedicated his life to uprooting this Mayavad philosophy, this impersonal understanding, which is like a brick wall between us and achieving our real own benefit, which is love for Krishna. Okay, so everyone read again. Don't give up on learning Dasmal Tattva. Okay, don't give up. Malati made another thing on Facebook with all the 10 verses with word for word. So today we'll try and put that. I'll send that to everyone. Go Premanandi.